Well, breaking news this hour. The US President Barack Obama has confirmed that Osama bin Laden has been killed in a special operation in Pakistan. The news flashed around the world, with the US claiming it's now in possession of his body. RT's Lucy Kafanoff has the latest from Washington, D.C.
U.S. President Barack Obama addressed the nation to announce, in fact, that the United States can finally confirm that Osama bin Laden has been killed by U.S. Special Forces. We're hearing that it was not a drone attack. This was actually a firefight on the ground by U.S. Special Forces right outside of Islamabad. There was a firefight that was exchanged. Osama bin Laden had reportedly been shot and killed in the head, and his body is apparently now in U.S. custody. So the president addressed the nation right now to just earlier ago to announce this major development. And also, we are just blocks away from the White House right now, where there have been hundreds of people who have gathered right outside of the White House in celebration of the developments that bin Laden has been confirmed killed by U.S. President Barack Obama. In fact, even as I was making my way to the studio, we've seen cars driving by, honking, American flags waving, and people continue to make their way down towards the White House to celebrate this news that, in fact, the United States has been pursuing for the past decade since the 9/11 attacks. It's been 10 years in Afghanistan, nearly since the 10 years since the 9/11 attacks, which really started the active hot conflict on the ground in Afghanistan. But we cannot forget that the roots of conflict so often go back to foreign policy decisions made years and years ago. And while the president did say in his speech tonight that the American people did not choose this fight came to the United States in U.S. soil, referencing, of course, the 9/11 attacks. We have to remember that the United States policy of covertly arming the Mujahideen in Afghanistan back in the 80s had, of course, contributed so much to the current situation that we have on the ground today. And it's one of those things that, unfortunately, in Washington sort of gets really lost in the mix. We don't really see the consequences of certain foreign policy actions as they relate to the present news developments on the ground.
Well, for more on the international anti-terror fight, I spoke to RT's correspondents Marina Kochanova in Russia's North Caucasus and Anissa Nawe in Moscow.
The U.S. is reveling in celebrations of what they're calling a victory and justice being served. Thousands of people gathered outside the White House chanting USA, USA. But in all these celebrations, what I think is being lost is the question of what now? What does that mean for global terrorism? I mean, when was the last time we heard Osama bin Laden take credit for a major terror attack? It's been years, and that's because the last two terror attacks on a major global city was on Moscow. Last year, of course, the Moscow metro bombings, and then just in January, a horrific attack on the international airport where not just Russians were targeted, but nationals of all kinds. So certainly the U.S. sometimes forgets that terrorism is a global fight, and very much this victory, certainly in the U.S. media, is going to be played out as America wins over terrorism. But that doesn't mean that the threat still isn't very much there, if not.
Well, let's turn to the region at the forefront of Russia's fight with terror. Medina, update us, please, on efforts there where you are.
Well, Russia's North Caucasus really remains the main training ground for terrorists in the country, and this mountain area that surrounds this district provides a convenient zone for militants to hide and to develop their network. And this is really the same situation as we may observe at the Afghan-Pakistani border. Now, in the last several weeks, there has been an intensified anti-terror raids, and dozens of militants have been wiped out, including some high-profile figures among terrorists with links to Al-Qaeda. As the search operation continues for other terrorists here in this region, it really shows that terrorism is a global issue, but is far from being solved.
Back to you, Anissa. What about the situation beyond Russia's borders, such as the conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan?
Well, the U.S., of course, as we all know, was planning to withdraw from both Iraq and Afghanistan in the relatively near future. Bin Laden's death shouldn't change that. If anything, it'll have anti-war critics saying, well, he's dead, let's go get out of those two countries. But let's not forget that before they withdrew from, or planned to or began withdrawing, rather, from Iraq and Afghanistan, the U.S. got their hands tied tied up with Libya. There, the number one enemy, of course, is Colonel Gaddafi. It's no secret that the U.S. and Europe wants to get rid of him. And although it's just been reported that they're arming these rebels, it hasn't been confirmed. We do know that they are planning, if they haven't already begun, to train the rebels in Libya. And that certainly draws parallels with what we saw in Afghanistan. It's very well known that the U.S. trained and armed groups that then went on to become the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. So we're going to hear a lot of analysis today about those parallels. And like I said, Osama bin Laden is dead, but another enemy will be born, and all eyes now are on Libya.